Hello, and welcome to my presentation on the effect that enzymes have on yeast fermentation. So, just a little introduction and background knowledge before we begin. In our ever more technologically advancing world, the global demand for energy grows much greater. Sources of energy, such as gasoline, are only finite, so in recent years there has been a growing interest in renewable energy, such as biofuels. Now, biofuels are created through a biological process known as fermentation. Now, fermentation is used in the absence of oxygen to create energy for organisms, and in doing so, it produces carbon dioxide and ethanol. Ethanol, of course, being one of our primary biofuels that are currently being used for things like transportation energy, heat energy, and electric power. Now, what was our objective for this experiment? Well, we wanted to observe the effects that enzymes had on the production of CO2 and ethanol during fermentation, just to see if it would be beneficial to add an enzyme to potentially increase the rate of reaction or the product yield. So, for our experiment, our hypothesis went if an enzyme is added to a fermentation reaction, it would increase the rate of production of carbon dioxide and ethanol. This is because enzymes produce the reaction energy required for reactants to react, therefore increasing the speed of production and yield. So let me just take you through our experiment here. So we labeled up six vials here, A through F, and we added different substrates to them. Here we are doing that. And so A through C here all have corn syrup, and D through F here all have 4 mils of cob extract. Now, A and D both have our enzyme cellulase in it to test our hypothesis, and C and F, N, B, and E all have calcium chloride, just as a buffer to keep the concentration of our substrates the same. So we vortexed each of them for about 10 seconds to mix up all the chemicals, and then we place them in this 30-degree bath water to prepare it for fermentation. Once they're out of the bath water after about 10 minutes, to vials A, B, D, and E, we add 2 mils of yeast, and to vials C and F, we add 2 mils of water. Those act as our controls just to make sure that our substrates aren't fermenting on their own. Now here we are doing that, and then once we vortex them one more time, we add our substrate plus the yeast, which should be currently fermenting, into Durham vials. Now, Durham vials allow us to observe the change in volume of gases produced by fermentation. So you'll take your initial volume, and then over a span of about 45-50 minutes, you will record the change every 5 minutes or so. And we put them back in this bath water to speed up the process, and we recorded our results every 5 minutes. Here I am checking the levels to record, and here are our observations. So we have all of our tests here, A through F, and then over time, and in here we recorded all the volumes of CO2 and the volume of our liquid. So we put them to graphs. So this graph is for vials A through C with the corn syrup, and the blue line right here corresponds to the enzyme plus yeast. The orange is for just yeast, and the green is for water. Now it looks like the enzyme, the blue line, went up higher than without the enzyme at the same time, and but eventually, without the enzyme, caught up to the enzyme's production, and they ended up with the exact same yield. So now for vials D through F, we have a very similar story where the enzyme increased at around 20 minutes or 25 minutes, and then the one without any enzyme increased around 30 minutes. But we have the same story where after just a couple minutes, it reached the production with the enzyme as well. So let's discuss what we have found here. Is the addition of enzymes worth the extra money it would cost for an extra yield? Not really. As we saw in these graphs here, it eventually, after only a couple minutes, goes back to the same amount of yield. So the ethanol and carbon dioxide being produced is the exact same after a little bit. So I would say no. This may be different at larger amounts of reactants, however. We only had, again, 7 mils of reactants. So if we were to produce more energy with larger amounts of reactants, this might have a different story. It might take longer for it all to react, so an enzyme might be beneficial. So, in conclusion, the fermentation of biofuels may be the future of the energy in our lives, but it does not appear that the addition of an enzyme would affect the yield of energy in a significant way. Thank you so much for watching my presentation, and here are my sources.